At the root of the climate catastrophe lies man's tendency to consume. And man consumes in three clear ways and three distinct ways. Man wants to consume the entire world. And the entire world consists of human beings, prakritic beings, which you call as natural beings, and man-made things. Whenever you will look around you, these are the three kinds of things you will find, right? Other human beings, other natural beings, and other man-made things. Man consumes all three, and consumption of all three leads to carbon emissions. When you consume another human being, what do you get? What do you get? Kids. And that is the biggest cause of carbon emissions. When you consume man-made things, again, what do you emit? Carbon. Because whatever there is man-made is made using energy, and energy comes from fossil fuels. So whenever you are consuming something man-made, you are causing carbon emissions. And the third thing is consumption of natural resources. Whether you are eating vegetables, whether you are a vegan or not, or whether you are consuming meat, all of this is highly carbon emitting. Even if you are vegan, you will eat grains at least. Where will the grains come from? Where will the grains come from? They can only come by felling forests. But then you start feeling great, I am a vegan, you know. I am holier than thou. The earth does not have resources to support 8 billion or 11 billion vegans. So do not be so happy about just being a vegan. Veganism doesn't help the cause of climate change beyond a point. We need two things. One, less people and less consumption. And both of them together. Are you getting it? Even if one of them is missing, you are gone. US has not too many people. Just 32 crores are there. And yet they are the biggest carbon emitters in the world because they consume. On the other end is China. China, the per capita consumption is 1/5 or 1/10 of the USA. And yet they are number 2 on the carbon list. Why? Because they are just too many. You need a situation where there are not more than 2 or 3 billion people in the world. That has been scientifically calculated to be the sustainable limit. And currently we are 8 billion. We need to reduce it to 2 or 3 billion. That's the first thing. Secondly, these 2 or 3 billion people have to be spiritual so that they do not have a tendency to consume. Unless you are spiritual, you are bound to be living a consumption-centric life. The very urge for liberation, when it doesn't find an outlet, it becomes the urge to consume. Do you see this? Where does the tendency to consume so much come from? It comes from the misidentified and thwarted urge towards liberation. If you will not provide liberation to a man, his energies will flow in the direction of consumption. So these are the two things that we require. One, less population. Secondly, the population that remains must be highly spiritual in its outlook. Only then can you avoid the climate catastrophe. All this tamasha that is happening on the streets will not help. Instead, it is making people feel good about themselves. I look at these warriors, climate warriors, young men and young women. Some of them were fighting the police recently in Bombay. And I thought to myself, will these young people refuse to have a kid? No, that they won't. Here for a tree, they are prepared to lay down their lives, and I respect that sentiment. Seriously, I respect that. But then I want to question the efficacy of that. You don't want these 2,700 trees to be cut down. But then if you get one child, that is the equivalent of cutting down 1,00,000 trees. Bringing one child to the world is the equivalent of cutting down 1,00,000 trees. Maybe more. Just do the maths. But you show so much of sentiment. When a tree is hacked down, and you show no sentiment when you see family after family procreating, you in fact send them congratulatory messages. Wow, nice, Didi, good that you had your second or third kid now. Returning from the climate demonstration, what does this young girl do? She calls up her Didi and says, so Didi, was the delivery fine? What nonsense is this? Do you understand? Climate catastrophe is a spiritual problem. And it can only have a spiritual solution. All else that you see happening around you in the name of climate activism is just tamasha. It will not help. It will boost up a lot of egos. It will give fame and limelight to a lot of young people. They will become climate warriors, they will become saviors of the world. Tomorrow one of them might even get the Nobel Prize. So much of limelight is there, you know. This young man, he has really brought this issue to popular consciousness. Let's bestow upon him the Nobel Prize for peace. All that can happen. But all that will be just symbolic, not helpful at all. Or even if it helps, it will help only to a very marginal degree. Do you get the real solution? From 8 billion, take it back to 2 billion. And you don't have to kill people for that. You just have to educate and encourage people to not to reproduce. Even if they want to have kids, let them have at max 1 kid. And second thing is, this 2 or 3 billion that finally remains must be deeply spiritual from the heart, so that it does not have a tendency to feast upon the world. Are you getting it? But the way climate activism is going, it is going in a very blind direction. People are trying to get governments to intervene by way of legislation. What can the governments do? It's a democratic world. The governments will only do what the people want them to do. And the people want only cosmetic steps to be taken. So the governments will take cosmetic steps. In fact, chances are, as far as this tree plantation exercise is concerned, chances are we have already crossed the threshold where tree plantation can reverse the changes of the effects of climate change. That threshold has already been crossed. Now we need stricter action. Now we need more meaningful action. Now we need real action. Planting trees might have been a useful step 20 years back, but that threshold has been long since crossed. You need to do more concrete action today. And more concrete action is not about, Friday demonstrations and all that stuff and Friday strikes. All that is just a show. Real action needs to be taken.